How many of you have been to one of these workshops before? Good. But by the way, keep your hands up. Everybody look around. Okay, everybody look around. Now put your hands down. How many of you have not been to one of these workshops before? Raise your hands. Okay, I want you to understand, this is the first time for you. These workshops are not designed to give you information. And some of you are like, well, I don't know any of this stuff. Great. I'm glad you're taking this information in. Some of you who have been, and raise your hands, I've seen patients here and practice members that have been to probably over 10 to 15 of these workshops. We have 2 of these big ones a year. The goal of these workshops are not to come sit, develop information, and go home and say, you know what, that was really good information. The reason behind these workshops are to hear this repetitively over and over and over and over and over again. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in practice. This will be 24 years, July. I know I look young. And I go to workshops. I've been going to workshops for my entire career at minimum 2 to 4 times a year to learn these principles. To where I know this stuff kind of like the back of my hand, to where I act on it. And there's a big difference. And by the way, if you ask me whether or not I'll still continue to do this, I will. Because not only is the stuff new and pertinent and to the times, but I have to hear it over and over and over again for it to become in part of my subconscious brain so that I can actually take action on it. How many of you know this information but are not doing it? Thank you for the honesty. Here's the thing. If you don't do this, you don't know this. And I'm not trying to give you a hit here. I'm trying to let you know when you know this and you truly know this, you do it. Because there's no alternative to it. Right? If you're going to ask me questions of whether or not I grew up eating, I would love it, sleeves of Oreos and Hostess Ding Dongs. Okay, grew up, when I would come home from school, that's what my mom would have. If you're going to ask me if in the past 25 years, if I ever put a Hostess Ding Dong in my mouth, it's never happened. My father, and I'm going to tell you this when it comes to exercise, and this segues into what my topic is here. My father was a county champion tennis player when I was a little kid. And he would, in between sets, he was an amazing tennis player, amazing golfer, really kind of an amazing athlete. In between sets, he would smoke cigarettes and drink Pepsi. That was his, like, you know how in between a work set, if you're working out, you go and drink water? His break would be a cigarette and a Pepsi. And I remember, clear as day, we got home playing tennis, the 2 of us, and he gets out of his car and he's smoking a cigarette, and he says to me, and he's getting his rackets and his balls out of the trunk, and he hands me the cigarette and says, hold this. You know, you're 5, 6 years old and your dad gives you a cigarette and tells you to hold it. What are you going to do with it? I was like, all right, I watched you do this. You know, so what I'm trying to explain to you is that these things, once you become ingrained in this information and you know it, you make completely different choices because it's ingrained in that subconscious mind. I did not grow up with these principles, but I've had to learn them over and over and over and over again because I wanted different from my children, and I wanted different not only for my children and my community, but I wanted different for my children's children, right? So this information should not stop at you. Your kids, if you have kids, they watch you, and they will follow you, and that is part of your legacy you're leaving to them, is not just who you are as a person, but these principles that you're teaching them. So I grew up in an environment where my parents didn't exercise to exercise. How many of you had family members that modeled to where they work out every single day? Look around. No one. So here's the thing. This just because your parents didn't do this, this is the reason why you don't like it. I've been studying this for a long time, and I've been studying human behavior for a long time because I have to deal with human behavior on a daily basis. And the reason why people don't exercise is because they have the wrong mindset behind exercise. Exercise should not be viewed as something that you don't like to do. In fact, I don't have to share with you the studies, right? But I'm going to. This is the British Medical Journal, and I love journals and periodicals that have been done outside the United States because they're not bought by any kind of pharmaceutical company. Like BMJ and the Lancet, they're not bought. But this study they studied people who did physical activity. This is a study that was done in 2020. And what they found was that people who engaged in physical activity, whether aerobically or through muscle strength, had according to the guidelines, and their guidelines, by the way, is 30 minutes a day, according to the guidelines, had a significantly reduced risk, get this, of all-cause and all-cause mortality, meaning of every kind of reason why people die. Significant risk. And I'm talking high levels of just moving their body for 30 minutes a day. So the research around how you move and whether or not you move or don't move is there. And I will tell you, we have practice members here that have gotten amazing results through the care that we provide through their nervous system, and they've changed their diet, and they've changed their supplementation. I can speak to a lot of them, and they're still missing a piece to the puzzle. And this piece to the puzzle for you, and if it sounds like I'm talking to you, guess what? I'm talking to you. This piece of the puzzle could be the fact that you do everything else. You get adjusted, you do your home care, you practice prayer and gratitude, and your mindset's there, but you don't move. And if you don't move, you are not providing your body with the requirements that it needs to survive. Now, exercise from now on for you, and again, if I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you. Exercise is no longer an option. Ready? Here we go. You know what that is? That's a line in the sand. You do not cross it anymore. Exercise is no longer an option for you. Exercise is no longer something that you don't like to do. Because I will tell you, I don't like to eat vegetables. I hate it. I don't like them. Do I do it? Yeah. I don't like to brush my teeth. I don't like to floss. I really don't like to floss. I hate flossing. I mean, talk about a waste of time, right? But I do it. I don't like to exercise. I don't. But think about the options. Think about the alternatives. Think about the outcomes. Folks, there's an old saying that says if you don't make time for exercise, you're eventually going to make time for sickness. So here's the thing. You have to spend the time. You have to spend the time. And whether it's time in a wheelchair and time hooked up to an IV in a hospital bed, or whether it's waking up and spending 15 to 20 minutes moving, you have to put in the time. And don't let yourself get into the history of coming up and bringing up all the excuses that you know that are complete and utter bogus. Stop lying to yourself. It's too cold. My joints hurt. I worked out yesterday. Excuses no longer. Excuses no longer. And you know why it's no longer? By the way, you want to know why? As I go back here for a second, you want to know why this information is there in that British Medical Journal? Why they publish that information? I'll tell you the answer. The answer of why they come up with studies is this, is it's no surprise, but this movement, oxygenation to your cells, is a genetic requirement. It is a genetic requirement. If you're telling me that you have so-and-so disease and it runs in your family, folks, first of all, let me debunk that myth right out of the gate. Only 5% of your outcomes when it comes to your health or your sickness are correlated towards your genetic code. They did studies on this called the epigenome. And only 5% of all the lifestyle-oriented diseases that we create, what the CDC used to term years ago, they would call it diseases for dummies. That's what they termed. Don't shoot the messenger. That's what they termed it. And these diseases were obesity, diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. The reason why they call it diseases for dummies is because the CDC back then knew that these diseases were completely based on your lifestyle choices and your habits. If only 5% is due to the genetic code, that means 95% is due to what you do on a daily basis from a habitual standpoint. It's not an option. You've got to move. You've got to move. The more you move, the more alive you become. How many of you have ever exercised and felt different after? Right? You feel different. And that's because you are creating oxygen to an environment that needs oxygen. You have to move. And moving, for some of you, it may be walking. But I'm going to tell you something. Walking is good, but it's not enough. It's not enough. You've got to push. You've got to get your heart rate high. And it's got to be high for a certain period of time, and then it's got to go low. 70 to 85% of your max heart rate. If you don't know how to calculate your max heart rate, take your age minus 220. Your age minus 220, and that is your max heart rate. You want 70% of that when you're exercising and working out. Folks, here's the thing. I've seen 75-year-olds that look better than 30-year-olds. I've seen 75-year-olds look better than 50-year-olds. I've seen 55-year-olds look better than 30-year-olds. Because most of you have not had a history where your parents showed you that you exercised as a daily regimen, this is the reason why you don't exercise. And that changes today. Here's the thing. Your muscle mass, by the way, decreases at a rate of 3 to 8% per decade after 30. Your muscle mass goes down at 3 to 8% per decade after the age of 30. And by the time you hit 60, your muscle mass goes down 3% a year. So what are you doing to strengthen your system every single day? The reason why exercise has consistently failed us when people try to get into a regimen is because your expectations are completely out of whack. And by the way, this is not just for exercise. Again, being in practice for 24 years, I've had patients and practice members who come to our office and they have had damage to their structure and their nerve system for 30, 40 years, and they don't get symptomatic free within 3 months. And you know what they tell us? This isn't working. You know what my response is? How do you know it's not working? You didn't know it wasn't working when you were asymptomatic. And if, by the way, if you eventually become symptomatic, what Dr. Sam talked about earlier, that threshold of 60%, if most of your life you're consistently losing function because we experience stress on a daily basis, and you don't know you're symptomatic, how do you know that you're moving in one or two directions? You don't know whether you're moving towards health or away from it because you don't feel anything. And because everything is geared and marketed to us based on how we feel, think about it, everything, even our medical profession is based on how we feel. You got high blood pressure, take this pill to make you feel better. You have a headache, take this Advil to make you feel better. It has nothing to do with how you function. It has everything to do with how you feel. So the question is, if your expectations are, look, I've exercised for a week now, and I don't see abs popping through. What? Clarissa, I love you, man. I was waiting for that laugh. If you don't see expectations pop through in a week, what do we say? Done. This is so stupid. Why do I need to do this? Here's the bottom line. If you notice, by the way, I haven't talked a bit about exercise right now. Do you notice that? What am I talking about? Mindset. Because most of you, do I really need to stand up here for 15, 20 minutes and teach you how to exercise? No, I don't. Most of you, this is all my... By the way, you want to know why you come to these workshops? You leave with a change, renewal, and mindset. That's it. That's it. And if you don't have these consistently and over and over and over again, guess what? All the media and social media and news and all the doom and gloom you watch bogs you down, and then you look up on Google and you think, I must have that disease because you know what? I felt like that the other day. Google. Unbelievable. All right. Expectations. So here's the thing. If you focus on the outcome of what you're doing, you will fail every time. And that, again, it's your diet, it is your exercise regimen, it's your chiropractic care, it's everything we're talking about today. Get your mindset out of the outcome, because the outcome doesn't matter. It will eventually pay off for you if you give it enough time. It will eventually pay off for you if you give it enough time. But if your focus is on the outcome and not the process, you fail every time. So I will tell you that your process is everything. What you're doing and how you're doing it. I'll give you a perfect example of this. In 2013, my wife and I would lift at Anytime Fitness consistently. She still does. And I got really sick. I said to myself, and this was, what was that, 9 years ago? 10 years ago? 11 years ago? Someone, you guys do the math. I'm talking here. So I said, look, I'm sick of the way I feel. I'm sick of the way I look. I don't like, I have so much to do in the office and managing patient care that I'm sick of coming up with my own workouts. I want to be able to go to a trainer and have them tell me exactly what it is that I need to do. I want to get stronger as I continue to get older. And I had a goal to be as strong as I've ever been by the time I turned 50 years of age. I said, I want to be the strongest I've ever been in my life, even including high school when I played football and baseball in high school. So, back in the 80s, you would lift completely inappropriately. It was completely different then. There wasn't any steroids. There wasn't nutrition. There was nothing. Those of you who grew up in that time, you know what I'm talking about. So I hired this trainer in 2013, and I've gone through ups and downs with him. I've had times where I was as strong as I was, and then I had time where I tore my knee, I tore my shoulder, and bam, I'm back doing kid stuff again, like really wimpy stuff for me. And it would up and down and up and down. But I never lost sight of the fact that, look, this is not about the outcome for me. I just said, look, I want to be as strong as I've ever been by 50. And strong week, but I continue to do it every single day. Last week, I put up 300 pounds on bench press for the first time as a 50-year-old. By the way, I'm not telling, and I appreciate that. Thank you, stroking my ego a little bit. But I don't tell you that to try to impress anybody in here. What I'm trying to tell you is that, look, it's not like I'm ever going to stop lifting weights again. You know what I mean? Like now I have another goal to hit. But the fact of the matter is that if my outcome was, okay, I'm stronger than I've ever been, 2 years ago, I would have stopped. The focus has to be on the process. A great YouTube video is Michael Phelps being interviewed before the 2016 Olympic Games, which was his last time he went through. And he was interviewed by Bob Costas, and he asked him a question. He said, look, if you go through, this is your last time you're swimming in this event. If you go through and you wind up getting silver, is that going to wreck you? And the answer to him was awesome. It was absolutely not, because my goal was never to win gold. He goes, my goal was to be the best I could possibly be, but the fact of the matter is that my whole goal was consistently just focusing on getting better every single day and focusing on the process. That is your mindset behind your workouts. That is your mindset behind your exercise. And everybody has to move. We got to start working through this. And the key to doing this, by the way, is what Dr. Adam talked about earlier. I'm going to talk for a second about planning, because here's the thing. If you don't plan this out, you are going to fail with this. And I will tell you, tomorrow night, I will get out my phone, and I will not only plan my meals for the week. And when I say plan my meals for the week, I mean every single thing I eat will be marked down. This is an amazing invention. But I will also know exactly when I'm going to work out, what kind of workout I'm going to do, at what hour I'm going to work out, and that time frame in which I'm going to do that workout. Folks, if you do not want to wind up on medication and sick in a hospital, you have to get this serious about yourself. Most of us, we have grown up with such a lack of self-worth that we don't feel like we are worthy of putting the time and energy and attention into your health. If you do not plan out what you're going to do, and I would plan out specifically, not only this stuff, but I would plan to do your home care. You have a plan of when you come get adjusted. You have a plan of when you go to the dentist. Why are you not planning when you're going to move and what you're going to do to move? If the more you plan, the more disciplined you are. The more disciplined you are, the more free you are. Discipline equals freedom. Most of you are like, well, that sounds really intense. Believe me, I've never felt so free in my life when I wore a plan. And I'll give you another little story. A couple weeks ago, my wife and I went down to see my son. He goes to Indiana. He goes to IU in Bloomington. Sorry for you Purdue folks. Jerry, I love you. So we go down there. My son is a freshman. He's in the second semester of his freshman year. He's in the Kelley School of Business. So if you know the Kelley School of Business, it's like 2 jobs just to be in that school. He is on the football team, which is another 2 jobs. And because my son is kind of a doer, he's rushing a fraternity this semester. When he told us that, I was like, I told my wife, I said, Jamie, he doesn't know what's coming. He doesn't know what's coming. So anyway, what happened was, we went down there, and he said, oh, Dad, I'm so stressed out. And I said, you're stressed out, why? He goes, I don't have any of the time to do all the work I need to do. I need to learn the playbook. I need to learn the fraternity song. I need to work on my footwork. I need to work on my speed work. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And what Dr. Adam talked about, I basically did with him. I broke this out, and I said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to plan out everything you do, down to the half hour. You're going to plan when you're going to learn the fraternity song. You're going to plan out when you're going to study the playbook. You're going to plan out when you're doing your school. And his response to me was, Dad, I don't have enough time. How many of you have used the excuse, I don't have enough time? How many hours in the day? 24. This is good. How many hours on average do we sleep? 8. You guys are sleeping well if you're sleeping at 8 hours. I love it. 6 to 8. How many hours left? How many awake hours? Come on, let's go math. 16 hours. How many hours do you use at work? 8 hours. How many hours left? 8 hours. You have 8 hours left. Do you know that you only need to work out for 15 minutes a day? When people say, I don't have enough time. Yeah, you do. What are you wasting your time on? What are you wasting your time on? You could all plan 15 minutes. And that's the beauty of this workshop and this makeover and this challenge. All we're asking you to do is 15 minutes. That's it. But you got to plan it. Because if it's not planned, what will happen? It won't happen. Stop with the excuses. I don't care what kind of exercise you want to do as long as it should be in the form, if you're going to work out for 15 minutes, it should be in the form of something called HIIT training. How many of you have ever heard of HIIT training before? Okay, HIIT training. Some of the benefits, you burn a lot of calories a lot faster in a shorter period of time. HIIT training stands for high interval intensity training. Number 2, your metabolic rate is higher. So it increases your metabolism because it will also increase the acceleration of burning fat. At the same time, it will also increase your lean muscle mass. The more lean muscle mass you have, the better and faster your metabolism works, which means the higher the rate that you will lose. By the way, if you're one of these people that says, you know what, my metabolism's dead and slowing down because I'm age 45, 50, 55, research shows that your metabolism doesn't truly slow down significantly to make an impact until you're 67 years of age. So if you're using my metabolism's slow as an excuse, not an excuse anymore. Promotes lean muscle mass. Promotes oxygen consumption. It actually oxygenates your cells and tissues, which is what your body needs. It reduces your resting heart rate and lowers your blood pressure and reduces the dependency for blood sugar. So I'm going to tell you that if you could start working out like this, and by the way, again, 15 minutes, but you're going to take your heart rate, your max heart rate, you're going to do 60, 70% of your max heart rate while you're working, 60 to 50% while you're not working and resting. So if a 15-minute workout should look like 30 seconds on of intense, engaging exercise, 30 seconds of rest. Does it sound a lot harder than it looks now? And it should be challenging. By the way, recommendations. 3 types of exercise you should do on a rotating basis for the remainder of your life. Number 1, do the things you like to do. I like to golf. I actually love to golf. So I'll put that in the love category. Okay, I love to golf. And I love to hit balls. And I will tell you right now, when I go hit balls for an hour, I bet you I burn more calories and my strain is up more substantially than me going for a walk or sometimes lifting weights. Because it's repetitive and it's full body. So I love to golf. That's one of my workouts that I love to do. I like to lift weights. I enjoy it. I like to do it. I hate cardiovascular work. I hate running. I hate walking. I hate all of that. The other day when I went home to walk my dog, I had no time to do my cardio work, so I put 50 pounds on my backpack and walked my dog in the freezing cold. I'm finding ways to push myself and challenge myself. Find the things you love to do, find the things you like to do, and find the things you hate to do, and rotate those every 3 days. Good news is that the things you hate to do, you're only going to do them twice a week. Kind of works out for you, right? So if you're going to do this HIIT training, you may do it, you may use weights. You may use body weights. You may use burpees. You may use squats. You can mix it up. But it's got to be 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off in that interval time, 70% of your max heart rate in that time. We're getting there. The last thing I want to talk to you about when it comes to short burst, high-intensity workouts is this. Is that, go back, Dwight, if you don't mind. Is that when you start to move this way, after about 2 weeks, the first week of doing this, you're not going to like it. It's going to be hard. I want you to know, exercise should be hard. And I will tell you, it's okay for things to be hard. Because the harder you work, the easier things become 6 months down the road. How many of you have heard the term eat the frog? Do the things you hate to do or that you don't like to do first thing in the morning. You get it out of the way. Plan it. Put it in your calendar. Plan it by the hour. You will become successful. The last thing that this is going to do for you, this is going to help and promote detoxification of your cells. And most of us, when we are retaining weight and retaining toxins, our cells are loaded with toxic fat. And the more we move and the more we oxygenate, the less toxic fat we hold on to. All right, Dr. Matt's going to come up here and talk about detox a little bit more on a specific level. So I appreciate you. Plan your stuff. War Planet, baby.